All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. How are you? It's Monday, and Pete is not
Cheers,
dead.
people. I am
Guys,
not
I
dead.
get I got so worried
No, I
because
was just commiserating with the neighbors.
no, because I messaged Pete like about seven, and although admittedly I didn't give him the time that we would start, but like he just kind of disappeared. He said, "I'm going out for dinner," and I was like, "It's 9:30. It's 10. It's like, where's Pete? Where's Pete?" And it's like Murphy's Law because I put this link in a bunch of groups and people were liking and loving and stuff like that. I was like, "Oh, maybe we'll actually get some listeners." But I told him we'd be on in 20 minutes. That was an hour ago, so. Hopefully they'll catch the replay, which is fine because most people do catch the replays. Thank you, those that listen and like and subscribe to the page. But how are you, Pete? Are you moving or not moving?
I'm good.
Where is Pete? Is he moving?
I'm probably moving. Yeah.
Oh,
They
again.
they took me to see a house on Sunday, so that was yesterday actually, and I couldn't see the room. The house is
No,
way too.
you're cutting out a little bit. You're cutting out. We're having technical issues at the right at the start, and it's very funny, guys. I swear we have like
Far.
some sort of like bad juju because his quality was perfect when
Might be
before
that
we
more
went
than
on,
anything.
and now it's a little off. But whatever, it is what it is. Pete, if you can try on your phone again, see what happens because you are cutting out when you're talking. Um, and it always starts right when we begin. So hey, I think this is one of the trademarks of the show. So guys, we watched a whole lot of stuff this weekend. So we'll be talking vampires versus the Bronx and American Murder and Family Next Door. And Pete we should get his audio back at some point. I think The Monster and the Witch in the Window, which I haven't heard of any of these movies, Pete. Thumbs up movies, hopefully. Two thumbs up movies. But I'm gonna move ahead here because Mr. Pete is having some tech issues over on his side. But if you can jump in, just jump in whenever you can. Um, but yeah, guys, I was worried about Pete. I was like, what happened to him? Because there was a night where we had scheduled to do a podcast here at my house and he disappeared and it ended up he just fell asleep. But I never know with Pete because he has shown up to my house before and been um, accosted by the
I
police.
didn't fall asleep.
Yes,
I
you
fell
did.
asleep. I fell asleep is what happened.
Yeah, he fell asleep, but I never know. I always think the worst. I'm one of these people that likes to scare himself and always think the worst. So I always think dead first because, and everything else will be better. Well, depends. I mean, you could just like lose the use of all your limbs, which might be worse than death. Um, but at least you get to watch a lot of movies sitting in your little wheelchair.
Yeah,
All right,
I have been.
go ahead. Go ahead, Pete. I never know when you're about to come on because
Known
it's silent. Oh, we got a viewer. What's
movies.
up? How are you? Peter, see if you can find a good spot there and try logging in, logging out, and logging back on, or see if you can get on your phone because I'm getting nothing. And then when you come in, it kind of catches me by surprise and I'm talking over you. So see what you can do, brother. Um, as far, guys, so like I said, this week I
I'm
watched a whole
trying
bunch
to
of
get
stuff.
on my phone, but
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. So quick picks this week, just stuff that I watched. I did watch the Walking Dead. It came back on like for the last episode. It's a bit anticlimactic, uh, but next season, which will be the last, it looks like it'll be go out with a bang. We're gonna get that Whispers War finally, and probably end up in the what was it the New World Order and all that stuff, which isn't that much of a spoiler, guys. I mean, I haven't watched the next season, so how would I know? I'm just going by the comics. The ending of the comics was kind of ambivalent, so you could say good, it ended in a happy ending, not so happy ending. A big death happens. I guess I won't spoil it for those that haven't read the comics. Not sure if they're going to do that in the show because, it would be kind of killing the person twice. So, not sure they're going to do it. I hope the show ends on a happy ending. That's just me. Because it does everything doesn't have to end on a down note. So I'm kind of hoping for a happy ending, and I do think Carol's gonna end up dying because in the comics we had Andrea dying, and she was a really really good character in the comics, not in the TV show, and she ended up dying. Real shocker. We need a big shocking death to end the series. I think Carol is probably the one because she's been the fighter. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I also watched the South Park Pandemic, which I thought was really funny, and you'll understand why when I start talking about American Murder, which was really dark. So I needed to watch something a bit more upbeat afterwards. And so South Park Pandemic was really funny. I really, really recommend it if you get a chance to watch it. And I'm not hating on Cobra Kai anymore. I I binged the second season and really loved it. I just started out kind of too teeny bop for me. I'm not into teeny bop type of stuff. And but once it got going and a lot of the older characters came back. The original Cobra Kai dude came back and all that stuff. I really got into it. But let's get into the movies. Thank you, viewer out there. If you're out there and want to say hi, you're more than welcome to. Oh, there's Pete on his phone. There's Pete on his
I
phone.
am, yes.
Now, look at that. That's beautiful. That sounds great.
Yeah, the internet is still shitty, but the sound is better.
The sound is way better. The sound is way better. Yeah, Pete is just has the bad luck with internet, man. But it is what it is. It's Brazil. So, Pete, the first movie I'm going to be talking about today is Vampires versus the Bronx, which we watched the trailer to together last week. And I thought it was going to be sort of like this cheesy remake of like that British movie Attack the Block that I talked about last week. Because it's kind of a similar premise. You got kids in the ghetto fighting a supernatural force, and they're gonna kind of fight them the ghetto way, quote unquote, whatever you think that means. Um, just that I really liked Attack the Block because those kids were really badass. They cursed each other out. They had a lot of really uh, um, interesting language, let's say, and it was funny. John Boyega, by the way, that was one of his breakout movies before Star Wars. So I was like, oh man, the American version is just it can't match that because you know how American movies are. You, you can't show like a butt in an American movie and people will get all freaked out, right? So I figured it was going to be very vanilla, very kind of half and half remake of that, or taking on kind of the similar themes. And boy, was I wrong. Okay, I really, really love this movie. It was. Oh, there's Pete again.
Yeah, bollocks. I think it's just a shit internet day, I'm afraid.
No, it's okay. But you're back. So, Pete, I was talking a little bit about this movie, Vampires versus the Bronx. It's technically
Yes.
not a great movie, but it's got so much
No.
heart. So much. It's so much fun to watch that it became like it shot up to my favorite movie I've seen this year. Uh,
Really?
Yes, yes, and everybody that's watched it so far has loved it, and they've understood that it's just a cute movie. Like it has fun with itself. It's kind of has a Goonies type of feel to it. A bunch of these kids just kind of
Exactly. Exactly. And as you know, I
yes.
hate the Goonies, so
You
I
hate the
wasn't a
Goonies.
big fan
Oh
of this.
no! See,
Yeah.
Pete, that's why you
Yeah. I
have
mean,
bad
I'd give it about
internet,
a
man.
I'd give it about a 5 out of 10. Like I didn't hate it. I liked it better than the Goonies. It was cute, as you say.
Oh, you watched it. I didn't. Oh, he's gone. I didn't know you watched it. Oh, okay. So you give it a 5 out of 10. I give it an 8 out of 10. I really had fun with it. Uh, these kids, man, they just reminded me of kids I knew growing up, little badass kids, but they weren't so badass. I think that's where the movie worked, where they didn't try to go for like the attack the block, where a bunch of little gangsters, even though one of the kids was like kind of flitting between whether he wanted to join a gang or not. They were just these really cute, kind of nerdy kids that happened to be able to save their neighborhood from a vampire invasion. And how is this vampire invasion? See, Pete, that's why you got knocked off the channel. You said both. You said some shit about the Goonies, man. You can't talk shit about the Goonies. But anyway, um, so gentrification is also the main theme in this movie because you have these neighborhoods that are being taken over by upper middle class people. The rents go up. White folks, mostly they go into these black neighborhoods, buy out all the property, buy price out everybody that's been there for decades, even generations. So it takes that idea and it transforms these people into vampires. So that becomes like the allegory for. Oh, there it is. For Pete, you got knocked out because you talk shit about the Goonies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like this better than the Goonies. But yeah, when it comes to the subject of gentrification, like it tends to be looked at as just rich people forcing poor people out of their homes. And we've seen a lot of that in Sao Paulo, where gentrification
Mhm.
has not necessarily been a bad thing. Where like Centro, the outskirts are being like redeveloped, and yeah, it's poor people getting kicked out for wealthier people, but there are also streets you can walk down without fear of being murdered after dark. So that's a good aspect.
Yeah, see, I think that's where you gotta sort of find a balance, and that's where people get upset with gentrification, that there is no balance. You're losing the old neighborhood to just create a whole new one. You mentioned
Right.
the center of São Paulo, but the center of São Paulo is still the center of São Paulo. Like when you walk down there, you still feel like I'm walking in downtown São Paulo with like the old school buildings, the architecture, the little bars, those little dirty bars where you can find a
Yeah.
hooker and get a drink. So it's managed to, okay, so then we'll have like a nice building too, okay, or like a new sports or athletic building too, which is really good for the neighborhood. I agree, but keeping that balance is key. Where if you look at some of the neighborhoods where this is happening in the US, it's transformed the whole neighborhood. It's no longer the Bronx or whatever. It's no longer, or Brooklyn. I mean, Brooklyn is like little Manhattan now, compared to what it was before. It doesn't mean that it's not cool to have some progress, have some, better infrastructure and things like that. But at some point, you also gotta care for the history of that neighborhood, who built that neighborhood, the history of that neighborhood, and don't just change everything into a Starbucks and Whole Foods. I remember this happened in Philadelphia. I used to live in South Philadelphia, and it just ruined, I mean, South Street, which is one of the most
Right.
famous strips in Philadelphia. All the little cafes were gone, the little bookstores, and then we had like a big Whole Foods, a bunch of Starbucks, and the dynamic of the neighborhood changed. And you're like, wow, I mean, I'm all for progress. It wasn't that bad before. Yeah, maybe it could have been a little bit better, but did we need to go that far where all of a sudden now it's not our neighborhood anymore,
Right.
Um, so I think that's the issue when you talk about gentrification, is that people feel like they're being kicked out and just, we built this and you're just coming in and pricing us out. Like what about maybe building some lower income places too for us to live in
Right.
our neighborhood. Like there's other options. So I think that's where the issue is with gentrification. And they just use the allegory, the metaphor, whatever, of like a vampires. These are just vampires who are coming in, sucking everything out of the neighborhood, sucking the life out of it, and
Yeah.
building, which was fine. I like that idea. I like how they
But
made
they
that
weren't
connection.
really that intimidating, though. The
They
vampires,
weren't.
I didn't
They
find.
weren't, and I don't think they were meant to be. I think that's where the movie, for me, I enjoyed it. Is that it was kind of making fun of itself, like it took itself lightly, because like I said before you came on, I was saying how when I watched the trailer,
Right.
I was like, this is kind of reminded. It felt like Attack the Block, just by the trailer. And Attack the Block is pretty serious, even though it's also tongue in cheek, but it's pretty raw, like even
Yeah.
just
I
by the
mean,
language of the kids.
it was a
And this
quick
one
and
isn't.
breezy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a quick and breezy, fun little film. Like I said, I
Exactly.
didn't hate it, but I didn't really love it either.
Yeah, I think it's a good one to watch with family and kids. Like this is a horror movie. If you got kids, I think you'll have fun watching it with kids. You know, and I get it. Most of the reception I'm getting from people in different groups is it's cute, and I think that's a perfect. Sometimes a movie can be cute and fun. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, the characters were really likable. I did like the kids.
They were funny. I just wish that little
Yeah, yeah.
Haitian girl. Oh, let me just say here. Let me write a message. Um, Say hello and tell us what you have watched this week. Okay, we got two viewers or listeners. And
Wow.
I told you we were getting some viewers today, and then you disappear. I thought Pete died, guys. I was like, Pete, I worry about this dude. I'm just joking. but
Yeah, you said
but
10:30. I was back here at exactly 10:30.
all right, all right, all right. Guys, I thought it was late. I'm totally lost. All like this heat is just frying my brain. I have no idea what day it is, what time it is, or what's going on with my life. This heat sucks down here in São Paulo. I did want to have a PSA. Can I do a quick PSA, public service
Sure.
announcement?
Yeah.
Because it's so frustrating. For us that are in the movie dome. And a shout out to Scott Crawford, by the way. And I had a good conversation with him about this. So shout out to Scott Crawford, because he's a really good dude, in the Friday Nightmares podcast, which is a really good podcast, which he does with Heather. I binge them, because they're kind of long. They're kind of like our podcast. They're a little bit long, so I'll binge them in a row over the weekend. But we had a good conversation about this because I had posted that I watched this movie in his group, and some dude was like, "Oh, this is just a ripoff of Lost Boys and Black Lives Matter or something." I don't know what he was on. But ended up, he was judging the movie before even watching the movie, which I just made that mistake with Cuties a couple months ago. So I'm not saying coming
Right.
from a moral high ground because I just did it myself. I tend not to. I usually say it's a good idea to watch or read or experience something before you judge it. That includes anal sex, by the way. But I mean, I'm just saying. Uh, but if you haven't seen something, how can you give an opinion on it? Now, after you've seen it, like I can respect what Pete said. It didn't really do it for him. He gave it a 5 out of 10. But guess what? He watched it. He can give me reasons why. He can explain what worked, what didn't work. But if you don't watch something and people get it's like they're sensitive nowadays, especially to two things. The remake, and there's been remakes forever, since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Shakespeare is remaking, stuff. And
Hitchcock remade
when,
one of his own movies.
yes, remakes is like, we're always going to have remakes, guys. Okay. So that's one thing it seems like people are oversensitive about. And two is when you see a black cast doing something that maybe is reminiscent of a movie that used to be by a white cast, or maybe a female cast remaking what was done by a male cast. And I'm like, dude, just watch the movie. Either it's gonna be good or it's gonna suck, you know. And
Right.
you're gonna be able to tell right away if it's just them doing the, what do they call it, like bean counting, or if it's just I I want to tell this story that I grew up with from my perspective. So maybe this movie did have some inspiration from Lost Boys or whatever, which is an all white cast. I watched Lost Boys for the first time. That's another one on my quick picks. I watched Lost Boys for the first time this weekend because people were telling me this movie is kind of reminiscent of it. Um, and okay, so maybe I grew up watching Lost Boys, but I'm like, yeah, but I grew up in Brooklyn and I want to give my spin on that similar story from my perspective. And it's like you're going to be able to tell real quick if that's coming from somebody's heart or if it's just, hey, let's just put black people on here because black people are selling right now in movies. So just watch a movie before you comment on it. You know, that's the least you could do as a movie fan, and that's respectful to other movie fans. Because otherwise you come off a little douchey if you do that. Oh, Pete is off again, so hopefully he'll be back on. So yeah, guys, watch movies before you comment on them. And again, I say that as someone that made that mistake with Cuties, and that movie is like the polar opposite of everything that people said it was going to be.
Right.
Um, so, that's just my PSA because that kind of pissed me off a little bit about that. And by the way, I wasn't a huge fan of Lost Boys. I kind of almost fell asleep through that one till
No,
the
I
end. The
wasn't
end
a
was
big fan of Lost Boys either. I saw that in the theaters, and I know a lot of people my age who consider it like one of the defining movies of their generation. It's like, why?
Oh well, it's because it's got I don't know why. Well, it's got all the boys from that generation. The two Corys, Kiefer Sutherland, the dude from Bill and Ted is in there. So I guess that must be why.
Right.
And these vampires glitter too. So don't
Yeah.
tell me anything about Twilight and those glittery vampires because these vampires got glitter too. So I don't know what you're talking about. But I did like
Right.
Joe Schumacher though. Is fun, right? I mean, he does some good scenes though. Joe Schumacher, rest in peace. He's got some.
Yeah. I think a better vampire movie of that time though was Near Dark with our boy Lance
What's the name?
and Bill Paxton. Actually, that had like Lance Henricks. Near Dark.
Near Dark. I've never heard of it.
Lance
I'll
Henriksen and
check it
Bill
out.
Paxton together
I'll
again.
check it out.
Really?
Yeah, never even heard of it. Dude, I was not into horror when I was a kid, especially not 1987. I'm seeing here on Wikipedia, American neo-Western horror film, co-written and directed by Catherine Bigelow and starring Adrian Pastor, Jane Wright, Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen. Oh, he's in there. I'll check it out. I'll check it
Yeah.
out. Yeah. But I was just not into horror growing up.
Yeah, it's
I'm
terrific.
just now getting into it, maybe the last 3, 4 years. Again, shout out to Scott and Justin. These guys really got me into horror. So I'm revisiting or sometimes visiting for the first time a lot of these movies. So I'll definitely check that out. But like I said, Pete gave it mild score. He did like the kids. I give this high scores. Again, technically not a great movie. Like it won't blow your mind, but I had so much fun with it. It's breezy. It goes by in a second. You can watch it with your kids. Maybe introduce them to horror with this movie because the vampires are really not that scary at all.
No.
Uh, and, and I don't know if they're meant to be, but it works. And Craig, our honorary co-host, Craig, he didn't make a nice comment where he said he could see this almost working as a series or like a franchise of like uh werewolves versus the Bronx, or the witches versus the Bronx. Like every movie, they'll have a different supernatural attack. I don't know. Could work because these kids had chemistry, man. They reminded me of the kids from Stranger Things. They got real good chemistry with each other. So we'll see. By the way, Pete, did you know Joe Schumacher had sex with between 10 to 20,000 men?
No. No.
That's a lot of dick, man. I just figured you'd want to know that.
Wow,
And he still had time to make some pretty awesome movies. So rest in peace, Mr. Schumacher.
doesn't matter, man.
You,
Where do you
that's a
find the
lot of
time?
motherfuckers. Where do you find it? Exactly. Like you gotta fuck at least five per day. At least five. Do a few orgies. Um, I wish I had that time. Anyway, Pete, I'm so glad that you got your audio issues fixed because I want to find out about
Yeah,
these movies. Because now I got Monster on the screen. I think this is a gift from Monster. I think it is. Is that Monster?
yeah. So,
Oh, the Monster? Not Monster, but the Monster, right?
I- yeah, I'm on my phone, so I can't actually see your slideshow.
That's fine.
Um, yeah, it's the monster. Yet another Canadian horror film from A24. Uh, I'm shocked actually. Canada puts out so many good horror movies, and like I've never heard of most of them, but they are out there. And yes, this is one. It is
Well, you've
a
been doing the
mother-daughter story,
A24.
basically.
You've been doing the A24
Sorry,
rundown. You've been doing the A24
yeah,
rundown. So you've been discovering
I
a lot of
am.
these movies.
I am. I am. I skipped the Oasis movie though. There's an Oasis documentary done by A24. I was like, yeah, I'm not watching that. But yeah, about one third of the A24 catalog appears to be Canadian films, and most of them are horror, and this is one of them. It's called The Monster, and it is about a monster.
Originally
It's
titled
a
There Are
mother-daughter story.
Monsters.
Sorry?
Originally, it was titled There Are Monsters.
Oh, that would have
But
been
I
a
guess.
better title, I think, actually, because that's kind of the
Okay.
little girl's whole point of view. So yeah, it's about a mother and daughter. They have a very bad relationship. The mother is quite young. She appears to be less than 30. She's an alcoholic, but even though her addiction is quite severe, that's not her main problem. I think her main problem was that she had her daughter too young, and now she's basically an overgrown child herself. And her
Mm.
daughter has kind of been forced to be the grown up in the relationship. I like the opening scene of the movie is the daughter, who's about 13, trying to get the mom out of bed because she's sleeping in because she tied one on the night before. And she's supposed to take her to see her father. She's going to go stay with her father. And our little girl has decided she's going to stay with dad because mom's a hopeless fuck up. And we see in a series of flash.
Oh, and a series of something. Ta-da! Suspense, suspense, guys. It's one of those nights. It is one of those nights. So far, what Pete is saying, it reminds me of this other movie that I saw called the Babadook, and I think it came out of Australia. So if you have not seen that movie, that's um, a mom son type relationship. Very psychological horror. So if you're into psychological horror, that is a really good movie to watch. By the way, I saw this nice video today of like what movies to watch for to get somebody into horror that is not like heavy dose like Freddy Krueger, Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff. And it was a real nice video because she broke it down into categories of like psychological horror, more supernatural horror, etc., etc. And the Babadook was on her list. Yeah, it's from Australia. Okay, and it was written and directed by Jennifer Kent. And this movie just kind of follows this mom, and she's a widow, and she's taking care of her 6-year-old son, who seems to have some emotional issues, let's say, the little boy does. And that's where the psychological horror comes in because you're not sure if what is happening is real or if it's in his mind or if it's even in the mom's mind because she reads this story to him before he goes to sleep about this creature called the Babadook. And then he starts to actually appear in the home. So it builds
That
from
was not
that.
bad. That was not bad. How
Yeah,
badly did I
I
get
was
cut
just
off?
telling
Did
him,
I
Pete,
even get the story in?
man, it was like right when you were about to get the story and you cut out. So I filled in space saying that what you had said to that point reminded me a little bit of the movie The Babadook. Just, kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
psychological horror type. But go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Where did I get cut off?
Suddenly, you just said suddenly, like the mom and the mom is like a grown-up kid and she's taking care of her daughter. And
Okay.
then right when you're gonna get to the meat of it, of what's going on, then it cut out.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like, she's taking her to live with her father. She doesn't know she's taking him to live with her father, but the girl's decided she's gonna stay because mom's a fuck up. They hit a
Yes.
wolf in the middle of the. It fucks up their car. They're stranded on this narrow country road, but they see that the
They see they hit the wolf, which reminds me of another movie. I'm feeling in space here for Pete. Um, by the way, while he's away, guys, we did do our Alien podcast, which will have zero sound issues because we recorded it here at my house in a little home studio. So that'll be coming out soon. I'm starting to edit it down. And also, after this podcast, I'll be back on talking some Lovecraft Country. I don't know how many of you are keeping up with the series, but last night's episode was real horrific, very horror inspired. And I know I have a friend in particular who could not go to sleep afterwards, watching last night's episode. So that will be something worth watching. Let's see if Pete is back or not. Hopefully, wherever he moves to next will have better internet. It definitely improved from where he was before, but apparently it's kind of going away at the moment. So, if you're listening right now, let us know what you've watched this weekend, or if you have any movies that you would recommend for us to watch. I know I got to get started on the Stanley Kubrick Film Fest, and I actually haven't seen as many Stanley Kubrick movies as maybe I should have because he's such an important filmmaker. So I can't wait to um, get into those because maybe I've only watched like two or three of his movies, um, and I've missed even some of the big ones. I don't think I've never seen Full Metal Jacket. I fell asleep during Clockwork Orange. Oh, there you go. He's connecting. Pete's connecting back on his computer. But I'm looking forward to watching that and seeing if my ranking changes. Go ahead, Pete. You are
I
back.
gave up on the phone. The phone was actually worse.
All right.
Yeah, no, I gave up on the phone. So, anyways, long story short, the monster is about a mom and daughter being terrorized by a big ass monster. Looks kind of like the xenomorphs, actually.
Yeah, the screenshot I got here is of the monster breaking into the window of their car, and it looks really fucking scary.
And
So that's something worth watching. Oh, Peter, Pumpkin Eater. Pete, what would you give this though? Good grades, low grades? I ain't never
it's
seen
all a
it.
metaphor for mom's alcoholism, basically.
It's a metaphor for alcoholism. I got that part. And we can all relate. So yeah, I'll check it out. I've never seen it. I have never seen it, so I'll definitely check it out and see what it's about. It's yeah, you can't see it. Oh no, you're on your computer, so you can probably see the GIF that I have on there, and it's them in the car, and the monster breaks in, and it makes me wonder if it's a real monster or if it's all inside their head. But the whole movie's on the side of this road. I don't know. We're moving ahead, guys. We are moving ahead. Um, so next, oh my goodness, this documentary is the reason why I watched the South Park Pandemic special, because after I finished it, I was like, I need to watch something upbeat, really upbeat, because it just did not like. It's very, very good, but it's very depressing. Okay, and it's a documentary that just came out on Netflix. Very well made documentary, I might add. So I highly recommend it if you've got a strong stomach. American Murder: The Family Next Door. It's a true crime documentary directed by Jenny Popplewell. Okay, and it tells the story of the Watts family murders, and it does it in the most uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh God, it's like somber, kind of scary way that you can imagine, because it doesn't interview anybody, right? Like usually you have in documentaries. It uses their actual social media to tell the story, their social media accounts. Um, the Especially the mom, okay, that got killed. Her name is, I can never pronounce her name. It's a weird name. It's not Shannon. It's Shannan or something. Shannan Watts. With all respects, um, and her two daughters, Bella and Celeste. Okay, and they seem like they were just this perfect family. She married this guy called Christopher, and you have all the social media account. You can see the lives of their wedding, of their vacations, and then when her friend shows up to her house, because she was supposed to pick her up or something. They're supposed to meet the next day. She had dropped her off from the airport the night before. They can't get in contact with her. She's gone. She's gone. The husband comes home. He's rushing. He's sending messages to her phone. Where are you, honey? Call me back, etc., etc. And then, and it's not a spoiler, guys. He killed both the mom, his wife, and their two kids. So it doesn't spoil the movie at all for you to know that. What makes the movie interesting is, one, how it's told, via, their text messages to each other, I guess through police investigation, they were able to get all the phone messages that they sent to each other, through, again, social media accounts, old videos, police cams. That part is so scary in the beginning when the police arrive at the house and they're trying to look in the house. They go to the neighbor's house, and the neighbor happens to have like these motion cameras, and you see that there's a truck backing in. It's the husband's truck, and that's what we get the first suspicion, because the neighbor says, man, the husband never backs the car in like that. And he seemed real fidgety, like he doesn't talk that much. And the husband plays it off like, I don't know where they are. I have no clue. I really want to know where they are. And slowly but surely the story unravels. And then when he takes the polygraph test and fails it, the story comes out. So again, it feels like I'm telling you the whole movie. One, this happened in real life, so you probably may already know the story of what happened. Okay, but two, it's the way that it's told that makes this a really fascinating movie and worth the watch. Um, Pete, I don't know where you are. If you're
I
on your
am
cell
here. I am
phone.
here. I got back. I got back. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a bad internet day.
Okay, no problem. I'm talking. I moved ahead. I'm talking about the documentary American Murder, which is really fucking good. Did you watch this
Yes,
one?
yes. I have not. I have not, but I have heard of it.
Oh boy. Yeah, so man, very dark. So like I said, it's not a spoiler for you to know that the husband killed the mom and the two kids. It's how this director is able to tell this story that's harrowing. It's really scary because it's through their social media accounts. So it goes back to something we were talking a couple weeks ago when both Pete and I were kind of on a social media rant because he had watched The Social Network. Is that what it's called? The Social Network?
The Social Dilemma,
The
Social
Social
Network's
Dilemma,
Fincher
the
film.
Facebook movie, right? Yeah,
Right.
which is a great movie, wonderful movie. And I watched the Paris Hilton movie, This is Paris. And both of them deal with this, the facade of social media versus the reality of what's going on. So if you checked out this woman's social media account, you think they have like this perfect marriage, but really it's breaking apart, to the point where this guy felt he needed to kill his wife and kids because he wanted to move on with his life. Um, and um, I don't know. It's stuck with me, man. And I was telling them, Pete, that this movie is the reason that I had to watch the South Park pandemic special afterwards. Because I was like, I can't go to sleep after watching this movie. It's just not going to happen. And then after that, I also watched Welcome to Sudden Death, which is a really cheesy movie, but great fight scenes. And I think it's like the third highest movie right now on Netflix. Just a
Oh wow.
old school karate movie, remake of the Van Damme movie, Sudden Death. But I really liked it. It was cheesy as hell, but I had fun with it. So yeah, I had to watch these movies just to wash away this American Murder, the Family Next Door. But it made me think of two things, Pete, and then you give me your thoughts on it. One, and I wish the movie would have delved deeper into this, is how when he confessed to the murders, he said that the wife killed the kids, and that's why he lost it and killed the wife, which ended up being a lie. But it was so interesting that online people had made like Facebook groups about this murder case, and they were all giving their different opinions of like, oh, but she was kind of a bitch and she was very demanding, and I could see how it is that he would have done this to her. And it was so shameful and so terrible. But as I'm watching the movie, I see how she is. She's a Jersey girl. If anybody from the US knows when we say Jersey girl, they're like kind of tough bitches, which is wonderful, by the way. Um, and she's got this kind of, she's like the quote unquote man of the relationship. So I was like, you know what? I bet you somewhere along the line, they're gonna victim blame. They're gonna say she was too pushy and too bossy and drove him to kill her. And it was interesting that in the movie they broached the subject. They didn't go too deep into it. I wish they would have done it more uh, to deal with people's reactions to the murder. But two, the other thing that kind of struck me, and it connects to the fact that you just watched The Exorcist, is what made this guy snap? Because he seemed like just your average Joe. Like there was nothing about him at all that would make you think that, like, why would he do this? Because he did meet another
Right.
girl, and he wanted. It ended up, and the detective was real smart while he's interviewing him at the police station, because he's like, "Oh, I see that you lost some weight. You look fitter." Usually people do that because of a woman. And he's like, no, I've never cheated on my wife, blah, blah, blah. But they discovered that, yeah, there was this other woman. So his motive for doing this is he wanted to leave his wife. I'm like, why don't you just get a divorce? So it makes me wonder what makes somebody snap like that. And it goes in a little bit with The Exorcist. I think that's why in certain religions they truly do believe that people can become possessed, that people just are not themselves. Because I don't think he can even explain like why did I do this? Like what do you got to lose? You divorce the bitch, and go live your life. So it's really weird, like that was a scary part for me, which kind of made me like, man, I need to watch something happy now, because it made me think, what if I snap one day? Like, what if Pete snaps? What if anybody, like, what will drive somebody to just like, well, today I'm just gonna kill someone, Really, really scary movie. So although it's reality, and sometimes that's scarier than fiction. The reality can be scarier than fiction. And the fact that he killed both of his daughters, man, like he killed the mom, and then he put the two daughters in the back of the truck as he's driving the mom to the place where he's going to bury them, and then he gets rid of the daughters. I'm like, oh my god, So highly recommend it. Again, another movie to really explore the power of social media to kind of create this facade, but it's not the reality. And I think that's such an
Right.
important thing that we need to be dealing with, because especially now, because we're all in Zoom world. We're in the
Yeah.
Zoom Skype world.
Not me. I will die before using Zoom again.
Oh, I've had to use it twice today. But in a sense that now we're even more totally connected by social media than before. Like before, at least we had a semblance of, okay, I leave my house at least once a week to take a walk in the park. Now it's like, no, my entire personality is what you see on Facebook or Instagram or this, and we don't really know what's going on. And it's scary, and there's nothing we can really do about it. That's the scary part. It's just like with people with depression. You don't know that they're ready to go hang themselves until they do. People, and
Yeah.
that's the worst part, I think, of it, because people feel so guilty. They're like, what could I have done? What could I have done? Probably nothing, because there was a article a couple years back, and it was real powerful. It was like the last pictures of people who committed suicide, and they're all fucking happy. They're like surfing, they're singing karaoke, they're
Right.
uh, cuddled up with their loved ones, and then they just kill themselves the next day. So it'll stay with you. I recommend watching something very light after.
Okay.
Very light after, but I think you'll dig it, Pete. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah, it
I,
looks
I
good.
think,
It looks good. Looks
yeah,
like
it's pretty
American
hardcore.
Justice, actually.
It looks. I've never seen that. What is American Justice?
It was this documentary show on A&E produced by Bill Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Oh,
like a crime journalist from Chicago, and he basically he did like most of A&E's content
oh,
back
cool.
in uh, back in the early 2000s. American Justice, Cold Case Files. He did all this cool shit.
I think I've seen. No, I'm looking here. I know this show. 1992, 14 seasons. Okay. Yeah. I think what sets this one apart, sets this movie apart, because I've seen a few kind of true crime stuff. I like true crime sometimes. And in a lot of times you have like the build up in the motive and why, and then in the part that's interesting about these shows is how the detectives kind of figured it out. Where
Right.
this one, and they do a lot of reenactments. Whereas for this movie, it's there's zero interviews with anybody. There's nobody that they talk to like today. Like, well, how do you feel about the death of your daughter? No, it's 100% archival, and they use the social media accounts to tell the story, which makes it, I think it makes connects it even
Okay.
more, because every day that's what we see. Every day we're flipping down Facebook, and oh, here we go. Hey, Byron McCoy. He's leaving a message here. Byron McCoy says Family Next Door was pretty much, but they didn't get much other than that was already publicly available. So I guess this was another show. I've never seen this. Uh, or is this the same show we're talking about? Is it? You kind of mixed me up here. But thank you for coming to the show. Um, it's the. Wait a second, sir. Oh, the Family Next Door. He's talking about the same show. Okay. See, shows how prepared I am. Yes. But anyway, guys, definitely recommend it. Put it on your watch list. Yeah, Family Next Door. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this show, American Murder, Family Next Door. And then Pete was saying how he used to watch this American Justice. But for me, what made it scary, what really hit home for me was the directorial style of telling the story via the social media, via everything that seemed perfect and it really wasn't. And also what made this father snap? What made this like he it wasn't like a difficult situation to get out of. He could have just been like, "Honey, I'm done," and just drove off into the sunset. Um, and he didn't. He felt he needed to kill her and the kids. I'm like, oh man. So stuff like that just stays with me, because like, what makes people snap, right? What makes people just go off um, and do something hard like that. So definitely worth the watch. And it makes you wonder if people can get possessed or something. I don't know. Pete kind of went off the. He went off again. He was going to talk about this movie, The Witch in the Window, which is. Oh, there you go. He's coming back. Just in time, Pete, because Craig, our honorary podcast members, when I posted this on the Facebook page, he said this is the only one of the movies he had not seen. So I'm curious as to what this movie is, The Witch in the Motherfucking Window. And I don't know if this is
Yes, yes, I am back. I'm gonna try and get this in because actually I just saw my internet connection went like completely dead for about 5 minutes there. Like it wasn't just weak, it was dead. So something funky is going on here. Hopefully next week I will be in a new place with better internet.
It's your hatred for the Goonies, man. It's coming back to haunt you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like this place generally was better than the last one, but at any rate, yes, I better get this in quickly because God knows how long I'll last. So the monster was about a mother and daughter. This is about a father and son. Um,
Hmm.
basically, father is estranged from his wife, and his son, who's about the same age as the daughter in the monster, he's about 13, I guess. Mom's caught him looking at some inappropriate shit on the internet, so she sends him off to live with dad, just for a short time. Dad's bought a house out in the country. The kid's from New York, and the house is in Vermont, so it's out in the country. And he tells him it's a fixer upper. He's basically going to fix it up and flip it. But that's not really the truth. He's bought it to win mom back. She has a thing for country houses. She likes horses. So he wants to fix it up for her and for them to be a family again. Um, when they get there, we get the urban legend from the creepy neighbor that the house used to belong to a witch and she died sitting in her window at a chair, and she was dead for like 4 days before they found her. And then he's still seen her since. The witch is is still there.
I'm here too. Keep going. Your sound
Okay,
is perfect.
okay, good, good. All
I'm
right.
trying not to
So
interrupt,
yeah,
so there's no audio issues.
yeah, exactly. So okay, so they know there's a witch there. They don't really believe it. And this is actually one of the best scenes of the movie. When they see the witch, they see her sitting in the chair. And it's like one of the most realistic horror movie scenes I've ever seen. Because, like, the kid's like, Dad,
There's a witch in the window, Dad. So far,
so they
you
get
got
driven
me.
from the house. I'm
Uh,
not going to tell the whole story of the movie because the last part is pretty scary.
but so far, you got me interested. This looks scary. I wonder if I should watch it tonight. Every once in a while, I'll watch a movie right after the podcast that I did enjoy Pete's telling of. So this might be one. I don't know if we're gonna get Pete back for the rest of the story, but yeah, she looks freaky. And always with these movies, I'm always curious. This is from 2018. I'm always curious as to whether it's a psychological or real type of movie as what's going on. Let me see something here, guys. The Witch in the Window. While Pete tries to come back, it's got a pretty good rating on the old tomato meter. Let me look on Wiki and see if I can get some more info on this movie while Pete comes back. The Witch in the Window. Yeah, it doesn't even have a wiki page to it. But when Simon brings his 12-year-old son out to the forest, out to the woods or whatever farmhouse, they encounter a malicious spirit of Lydia, a previous owner. And now, with every repair they make, she's getting stronger. Oh my God. I don't know if I want to watch this. I got to do some home repairs on my house. But it's got a nice rating on, it's got a 5.7 on IMDb. But I'll watch almost anything that's on IMDb that's above a 5 because you do have folks that are kind of like film snobs on there. So if it's not like the next Schindler's List, it gets a 5. So I would watch that. And 64% rating on our friends, oh, there you go, Pete's back. Our friends, the Rotten Tomatoes. Hello, Peter. You back? Where did the witch take you? I think he's out, guys. By the way, if he comes back, he'll give us a little closing about The Witch. But here are the movies that we did talk about today. Okay. Vampires versus the Bronx, which Pete gave like a 5-star to, which is why his internet's bad, by the way. And he talks shit about the Goonies too. And but I really loved it. I thought it was just breezy fun, guys. You can watch it with the kids. So get your kids into horror early with this movie, okay? It kind of has a Goonies meets, well, I keep saying Attack the Block, but those of you who have not seen Attack the Block, and you should, maybe a little bit of Lost Boys, because I did watch that this weekend for the first time. And I'll reserve my comments. And then Pete talked about The Monster, which looked really interesting. It's about this mom and girl, and the mom's kind of like you know, kind of a wacky character as far as I think she's an alcoholic and this and that, and they hit something on the road and get kind of stuck in the middle of the road and are attacked by this xenomorph looking thing. This is a Canadian horror movie. And then I talked about American Murder, The Family Next Door, which motherfucking shit was a super scary movie because of the sheer raw reality of it and just not knowing who you're sleeping next to. You know, motherfucker might kill you one of these mornings. And then finally, Pete was talking about The Witch in the Window. If he's back, you can give some closing thoughts on that, Pete. Are you back?
Fucker. Yeah, this is just not my day.
Give some closing thoughts on The Witch in the Window because it sounded interesting. It sounded more interesting than The Monster. I'll be honest with you. Um, is this more
It's very
psychological or is
different.
this
The
like?
the monster is very visceral. The monster is like these two women versus a monster, whereas the witch in
Hmm.
the window is more supernatural and psychological.
I might like. Well, I'll watch both of them. You know, I think
Yeah,
I'll
they're
check
both
both of them
short.
out.
They're both about 90
Oh,
minutes, I
cool.
think.
So I'll probably watch it right after the podcast. By the way, Pete, I saw The Social Dilemma this weekend, and you
Oh,
know what happened?
nice, nice. What?
Guess what happened? I fell asleep. I didn't like it that much. I thought
Yeah, okay.
I kind of go with what you said. Like it's nothing that I kind of already didn't know. And what took me out of the movie was the other thing that you mentioned, those little skits in the middle. Like when they were
Yeah,
following that
the skits were,
family.
yeah, yeah,
Yo, that just was so boring. Like with the little son, and the mom's like, "We're gonna, stay away from your phone for 1 week, and I'll buy you a new screen." And this, I was like, I don't give a shit about these family.
no,
So that and the little cartoons weren't as offensive because they like it was the programmer telling his story, and they just animated it. I was like, okay, whatever. But I fell asleep, and then I was like. I woke up, there was like 30 minutes left, and I tried to press play, and like the computer locked and this, and I was like, fuck it, I don't need to watch the last 30 minutes of this. So I didn't watch it. It's very rare for me
right.
not to finish a movie, but it was kind of what you said. Like, we kind of already know this. So maybe it's a good movie for those that are really oblivious to the fact that, yeah, the computer pretty much knows everything that you're doing, you know? So stop watching that much porn because they know. They know. Okay. You know what? It was a really interesting. Do you like that show, The Black Mirror? Do you like that show, Black Mirror?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I think they broached
What
on the
year?
subject. They broached the subject in two of their episodes really well, and it kind of covers all of this already. The one, I think they're both season three episodes. The one where the girl is like trying to get likes all the time, like in order for you to be socially acceptable, you got to have enough likes to be able to go to certain parties and stuff. And she does like all this crazy stuff, eventually ending up in jail just to be able to get her popularity up. Uh, that was really good. And then the one where the boy is this young boy, he's like a teenager, he starts getting these like these thing he gets this email saying we are watching you and you have to go here and do this, and then they end up beating him up. I think they kill him, and you really feel bad for him until you realize they were watching him, but he was watching like kitty porn or something. Like that's the twist at the end. Like those two episodes kind of encapsulate this whole idea of like, yeah, who's watching who, you know? So much so that from I went to this workshop and they gave me this little thing that covers your webcam, because motherfuckers can even hack into that and see what you're doing. And the social media, man, they have all the information on you. This is why when you're talking about something, and Google, I think, even admitted, like if you're talking to a friend about something, next thing you know, an ad pops up for it and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? So, and it's why it's funny sometimes when we get those wish list shopping recommendations for like dildos and stuff like that. We're like, what the hell? What was I talking about that made them think that I wanted to buy this? So that's a second thing that you may have to worry about. But I guess it's decent if you don't know about the subject. Guys, it's an hour. We're done. Look at that. We're keeping it tight. We're running a tight ship here, keeping these podcasts to an hour. I guess I'll wait another minute or so just to see if Pete comes back on and say good night, but I don't think he is. Thank you, those that listened live. It's always cool to get comments. Thank you, Byron McCoy. And thank you, anybody else that was on. So thank you, Byron, for your comments. And anybody else that was on, we'll be back every Monday. I'll be back in about 10 minutes doing a recap review of last night's Lovecraft Country. So I will talk to you later. I'm ending the broadcast. Good night.